We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. The way to the end zone, and Georgia is going to conquer the Crimson Tide.
So how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told them.
Hope it doesn't take that long again. Go Dogs.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 100 Sanford podcast. It is Lamar Lovelace. I'm here with George Foster. I'm here with Trick or Trade. We got Graham Coffee on the way. What is going on, my dudes? What's going on today?
Hey, we amongst the living. It's always great to wake up in the morning. That's a blessing. The Dogs 5-0. Another blessing. I don't care what nobody say. I don't care how it happened. You're 5-0, Bubba. That's all that matter to me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm ready to ride. I'm ready to be 6-0. We got them raggedy War Tigers coming in town this weekend, and we're gonna kick them in the teeth.
Man, I'm hoping we kick them in the teeth. Please kick them in the teeth. What's up with you, Trey?
And 5-0, undefeated. We move.
That's it.
That's all that matters.
I feel you, man. It's funny just coming off that week. It feels like for a lot of Dog Nation, it felt like a loss in a lot of different ways. But I told y'all coming into last week, huh?
Shit, me. Hey, the AP poll would have showed you a loss.
Yeah, that's facts. That's facts right there.
Down there, number 8.
Man, look. I said it last week. This week again, or this past week against Missouri was going to show us a lot. And to me, it showed us a lot. I'm not going to get into it all right now because, we got to pay some sponsors and all that kind of stuff. But it showed where this team is in comparison to last year's team. And Kirby mentioned at the beginning of the year, right? He said, look, this is not the same team. But one thing I will disagree with Kirby right now is that this team really needs to have, forget being the hunter. They got to start acting like they're the hunted, because now it's one of those situations where you built the castle, you're king of the castle. Everybody's coming to strip your walls down. Everybody's coming to take you down, and they're acting like they're invincible, and that can't happen. That can't happen against teams like Missouri, against teams like, Kent State or anybody else, because now the big boys going to start to come in. You got a big rivalry game that's coming up this week. You got Tennessee later. You got Florida later. You got Mississippi State that's playing a lot better later. You got to start acting like, hey, everybody's going to give us their best shot versus, okay, let's go hunting. And if we catch something, we catch something. But if we don't, we don't. Nah, enough of that. That's what's going to get scary. That's my thought on it.
And the crazy thing about Missouri played us. I think that's probably the best game they probably played this season.
Oh, by far.
They was ready to play. It was a night game that the crowd was rocking. Like, they had all the momentum in that game.
Let me tell you something though. You can I speak, or you got to pay some bills?
Let me pay the bills first, and then
right, go ahead.
Let's get deep. Hey, before we go any further, the 100 Sanford podcast is powered up by the Roll Up Network and our partner and our sponsor, Gramco. That's right, the Delta 8 company based out of Florida, founded by college football junkies just like you and me. If you don't know about Gramco, you need to go find out about Delta 8. They got everything. They got the gummies, they got the roll-ups, they got the vapes, they got all that good stuff that you like. Go try it out right now. Go to thegramco, thegramco.com, thegramco.com. Use the promo code Sanford25 for 25% off. And I always say this, if you take that test, you're going to fail that test. So make sure you're using your Gramco products, in the proper way so it doesn't get you all jammed up. But get back to it, G. Go ahead. Do your thing.
Man, just I had to. First of all, I was a little busy this past weekend. I was trying to follow along on my phone, so I couldn't write quite. All I know is they was giving me heart palpitations on Saturday, but I had to do some rewatching today, and you know what, that game is similar to That game is similar. Now the opponent is not similar, but that's the outcome and how that game happened and how I predict the next game is going to go is like SEC championship last year and what happened the following game after the SEC championship versus Michigan.
Okay.
We just weren't our best. As simple as that. And when you're not your best, but you can actually see like what was going on and see that it's fixable, you don't have any worries. And so that's why I don't have any worries about the Dogs yet. I hope it never happens, but I don't have any worries about them yet because from what I saw that went wrong in the game this past Saturday, all of it looks totally fixable. It doesn't look like a deficiency, so to speak. It's kind of like, oh, we can fix that. Oh, we're not doing what we're supposed to be, on the zone scheme. So we can fix that. Go gap.
I'll tell you what,
stick to your strengths.
Real quick, put on your expertise hat, put on your defensive coordinator hat, and tell the listener exactly what you think needs to be fixed from a team standpoint, whether it's offense or defense. It doesn't matter because you said it's fixable. What do you think is fixable?
I think the defense still you can't make the mistakes. Some of the defensive holding or PI calls against Ringo. He's an elder statesman now, so he can't do that. Things like the young guys up front getting out of place. You know what I mean? It's simple things that I think that'll come. Defensive wise, a lot of it's just immaturity and just stupid mistakes. On the offense, there were some one-on-one battles that we missed, and you got to win. Football is a whole bunch of one-on-one battles, and you need to beat your man every play, or as many. You win more of those battles than he does. And so we had a lot of those situations where we lost the one-on-one battles, and it kind of trickled in to making the big picture look bad. But I think they're going to be fine. You know what I mean? When it's as far as offensive line goes, I'm pretty sure that was a big deal for a lot of people. I think it's just being cohesive. They need to get rid of, they need to become a predominantly gap team, lean on guys, use them big guys, lean on them, and then sprinkle in the zone. But, do what you're built to do, which is match people out, in the gap scheme, in my opinion.
I feel you. Well, we're joined by Graham Coffey. Graham has now come into the building. Graham, we're sitting here talking about Missouri last week, and obviously that was some ups and downs, and that had some people a little bit worried. I'll admit I watched the game in a dark room. Kids and wife was downstairs. I went into the cave, and there was no sound, no nothing. But the good thing is I was utilizing my my Gramco sponsorship, so that kind of helped me. Because if not, it would have been an issue. But what's your thoughts on that game last week, Graham?
I mean, I think George just summed it up pretty well. Like, there's a lot of mistakes. I mean, the guy, like, Georgia has the athletes to be in the right position. They just need to make those plays when they're in those positions. The amount of missed tackles is somewhat odd just because Kirby Smart, since he showed up in Athens, I think Georgia's never been worse than a top 10 team in the country in terms of number of missed tackles. And right now they're not that. And so that's something I'll be looking for on Saturday against Auburn because they got to tackle these guys like Ashford and Bigsby and all of them. But, yeah, I mean, the 67-yard run that Missouri had, you take that out, all of a sudden their per rush average is like 1.75 yards a carry. So it's like, those are things I don't worry about that much. I do worry about Ringo a little bit just because right now it seems like if you throw it up on him, you're either getting a holding or PI penalty, or he's not going to turn around and play the ball. And there's situations that he can make an interception if he just turns around. And I kind of thought after what happened in Indianapolis, he would come into this year confident. He should be confident in his abilities because athletically he's always pretty much in everybody's hip. But it seems like when the ball is in the air, he's afraid to go and play it. Like if he doesn't, keep his eyes on the man, that he's going to give up this big play and not tackle the guy. But I think if you're Georgia, you'd rather see him go and contest that 50-yard pass than, make sure you're making a tackle at the 15, because at that point, you've given up 3 points basically. So I think if you look down the line at Tennessee and Mississippi State, those are teams that can go at him, once every 4 or 5 plays, and really that's a little worrisome. So I'd like to see him put some different stuff on tape over the next few weeks before you get to that stretch in the schedule. The offensive line is too talented to not figure it out. And I think a lot of what happened on Saturday was similar to Kent State, right? Like if you come out and go -2 in the turnover category in the first 15, 20 minutes of the game, like you're not going to blow people out that way. You can play well. I mean, Georgia won the yardage battle by 200 yards in this game, but like the turnovers have to stop, and you'd like to see them get some on defense, but they got to eliminate those mistakes on offense, especially in their own end. So,
what was funny, Graham, is that I went back and I listened to our last podcast, and we were talking about what we thought the outcome of this game would be. And, obviously George said 107-6. But real talk about that, right? When we talk about the players that we thought would make plays during that game, Edwards made plays, right? He balled out, especially in the fourth quarter, took the game over in terms of running the football. You had Chris Smith almost with an interception. You had Starks almost with an interception. You had Ringo. Like you mentioned, he's right there in the guy's hip pocket. He turns around. He actually plays the ball. He's got a couple interceptions. I said Kendall Milton would have dang near 100 yards. Heck, he had 63. Take away the fumble that he fumbles away. That's 25-yard carry. He's up over 80 in some
Right.
So there's things that are correct,
Lamar,
right?
Yeah, but I mean, take away the fumble, that I get it. Take away the fumble or almost make the pick. It's great that you're in position, but not making those plays is the difference between going up there and winning by 3 touchdowns and having to sweat it out in the fourth quarter. I'm with you. You're right. The athletes are the athletes. They're in the spot. But I think as coaches, it's their job to put them in the position. At that point, once they're in the position, it's on the players to make the plays. And I did feel like Georgia came out not so much on defense, but on offense. They came out and they looked kind of unfocused, and it looked like a bunch of guys standing around kind of expecting somebody else to make the play. And credit to them for getting their heads right. And a lot of guys stepped up and made, some difficult plays. There were some big boy yards that they had to come by on 3rd and long in certain situations. Dominic Blaylock,
huge play.
Was huge play. Extremely crucial in that game. And that's a guy who has kind of been on the shelf for a couple of years, with the injuries and stuff. So my hope for Georgia is that this game is something that creates a new level of focus, maybe a new level of humility, but also a level of hunger. Because if you get on Twitter or you turn on SportsCenter, people are dogging them right now. And the reality is they are still 5-0. They're still one of the most talented football teams in the country. But I think this week against Auburn is kind of a pivot point of is this team what we thought they were through the first couple of weeks of the season, or is this team going to, be in for a dogfight basically every week in conference play?
Right. And to kind of go back to what I was saying, I mean, I'm right there with you. That's exactly what I mean. When the coaches are putting these guys in position to make plays, and when you're in position to make plays, if those things are corrected, then they are the team that we thought they were early on. But if they're not, then they're the inconsistent team that we thought could show up, and Kirby even kind of alluded to could show up, because they're not the same team from 2021. Trey, what's your thoughts, man?
on what Graham said about Ringo, that's how I totally feel. Because Ringo reminds me of how Tyson Campbell was his freshman year. Be everywhere in the perfect place to make the ball, but doesn't turn his head around and make the play. And you would think Ringo would have the confidence. He's in year 3.
Mm-hmm.
Year 3. And he's not getting his head around. He's panicking. It's like he don't trust his ability or his God-given talent.
You know, that's funny when you say that.
He has to trust. He has to trust himself. He's too big. Like man, that big joker be running, man.
Man, he can run.
He runs a 4.4, man.
He's
always there. He's always there, and usually don't find that big guy that's always there. And when you're that big and that fast, like the plays are there to be made. You just have to make them. You know what I mean? They're there. You just have to make them, and he's gonna be fine. You know, I've talked to people. You know, I got people down in Jacksonville. Tyson's turned into a player. He's putting the complete package together. You know what I mean? And sometimes it just takes longer than others. You just want to see it happen a little quicker for Ringo right now. So, you know, you don't want to be the guy that, they go at. You know what I mean? Because they can get a cheap one on you. You know what I mean? You don't want to be that guy. So, you know, make them pay.
You know, it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy about Ringo from this standpoint, or any corner that's in college football, quite honestly. The yardage that you give up on a PI is not the same as it is in the NFL. Especially when you have a defense around you that you know you could trust. Ringo should be at the point, any corner, any DB at Georgia should be at the point now where they say, you know what, if I see the receiver starting to make a move towards the ball, I'm making a move towards the ball. Take your chances. And I think once he gets over that fear, it's kind of like jumping off the high jump, you know, in a swimming pool. You got to do it at least once. And after you do it, you're like, oh, okay, it wasn't as bad as what I thought it was. I think the same thing has to happen with Ringo. He just has to turn one time, just once. Once he feels that and feels comfortable doing so, it's going to happen for him. But I think he's, like you guys said, it's just a fear thing, you know, playing the ball, playing the man,
he's scared to make
to make a mistake. There you go.
It works like that. It was like that for me at some point in offensive line. You're scared to put your hands out there. You don't want to get them knocked down. You don't want to get, because once you lose your hands, a guy get around you and stuff like that. So I get it. Like we've said before, cornerback and offensive tackle are very similar positions. You know what I mean? It's a situation where all eyes on you. If you make a mistake, everybody in the stadium is going to hear about it. You might give up a touchdown, and your quarterback might die. You know what I mean? So you want to be perfect. You know what I mean? And he's just got to understand that you're not going to be perfect all the time. Sometimes you whiff. You know what I mean? But as long as you give that effort, you know what I mean, you'll be fine. You're probably going to make more plays than you don't.
That's why I respected when DK came here. That's why I respected his game a lot, because DK didn't care if he made a mistake. He didn't give no fucks at all. He didn't care. He trusted himself. He wasn't the fastest guy. He damn sure wasn't the tallest. He wasn't, but DK will give you 110% on the field every time it goes.
And it shows now because he's in the NFL getting opportunities, right? He's with the
he's starting.
Rams. He's starting, and that's what you need. You need that I don't give up attitude when you're at corner, right? You're on the island by yourself. You got to feel that you're the best athlete on the field. And I like what George said, because it's much like the offensive line, and I did want to touch upon that. To me, there's too much rotation on the offensive line. They need to pick 5 guys and go with them. Let those guys grow as a unit, get cohesive, pick your top 5 and go with it. I mean, unless it's egregious, and we've seen some egregious play right here and there. But I mean, you're going to miss some blocks, you're going to miss some calls, you're going to miss some assignments. But I mean, they need to get cohesive ASAP.
If Tate Ratledge hadn't lost his spot, he's not losing it. Let's just call it what it is, right? Like, I don't think he's fully himself physically with the turf toe and still trying to work his way back from the foot injury. Like, I don't think he is back in the shape that, he was in starting last season before he got hurt. But my point being, if you're not gonna what's been put on tape is enough to switch somebody else out, and so there's either not another guard that is capable of coming in and playing better, or they've just decided that's their guy and they're going with him. So I'm with you on the rotation, and I mean George, was talking about this yesterday with us on the Dog Central YouTube channel, but that's part of the issue with this whole zone run stuff is those guys, you keep rotating folks in and out. They don't really know what each other is going to do. There's not enough repetition with the same five. And that's the case in a lot of situations. I feel like, if you play any sport next to somebody for long enough, how that guy is seeing the play and what they're going to pick up and what they're going to do. And I think right now there's a lot of plays where you look at Georgia's offensive line and there's two guys and both thought the other one was going to pick up that guy that was blitzing or whatever. Yeah. And they got to get that.
And you just made me think of something, man. When you play with a guy long enough, I can remember times during my playing career where there was a call to be made and we didn't have to make the call. It was kind of a look. It was kind of like, hey, take it, you pointing with your head, or you're like, hey, come on, instead of deuce block, instead of a scoop block, instead of a B block, it's, hey, come on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's not, so they don't know what you're doing. It's just, you just know what the play is, and you have verbal communication, nonverbal communication, and things like that. And you only get that with repetition, and you get that with working with the same guys day after day. You know what I mean? And that's really important when you're talking about zone scheme, because, everything has to be perfect in the zone scheme. At least your fundamentals, your at least the ground floor, so even if somebody, messes up or makes the wrong play, you're still in position to, like I've told Random yesterday, I'll never forget a play where, I completely whiffed and I just kept going and blocked the next guy, and the fullback took my guy, and it was an 85-yard touchdown. I completely missed, and I can remember that play. I didn't tell him this yesterday, but I can remember that play being on ESPN, and I believe it might have been Schler that somebody talking about, look at this, blah, 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 and this and that, and we was doing the whole wrong thing. Touchdown, you know what I mean? But just because we're on the same page, right? And you can't be on the same page with guys that you don't. For one, for things that you don't rep that much, and two for on the same page with guys that you're not really used to like that. You know what I mean? So I think they should. I think they should, personnel wise, how they're built, they should be a gap team. Add a little zone if you want to, and not the other way around. They definitely don't need to be a 50-50 team. That doesn't work to me.
And it looked like to me that they were a little bit slow getting off the ball as well. To me, it kind of looked like the offensive line looked like dominoes. You hit the first domino, and all of them start reacting. With
that crowd, I believe it. With that crowd,
yeah. I mean, it made Missouri look like they were world beaters from the defensive line standpoint. I mean, SVP gave up a couple quick shots. Tate Ratledge. It didn't matter who it was. A lot of guys were getting beat during this game, but I still think cohesiveness is going to help you big time.
Yeah, they just got to get it together, and we'll see, man. A big part of football is how do you adjust, and we got to see if they're going to adjust. You know what I mean? You either adjust or you die. You know what I mean? And I think those guys want to win another championship. And it's not far-fetched. Who in the country is looking like a straight-up juggernaut right now that actually has a shot at winning it? Not nobody to me. You know what I mean? We're as good as anybody that has a shot to win it. They just have to go and take it. You know what I mean? It's set up for them to repeat. if you look at everything. It's set up for a repeat. It doesn't get any better than the setup. You know what I mean? So they have to just take it by the reins.
Yeah, it's interesting that you did say that, there's nobody right now in the nation that really looks like they're truly, quote unquote, the number one team in the nation. I mean, we talked about it last week. The ratings and rankings don't really matter too much right now, but when you do watch enough football like we all watch, I know, Graham, you watch, 30, 40, 50 games a week, especially on the weekend, taking no-dos and all other kind of stuff. But when you do look at Ohio State, you look at Alabama, you look at some of these teams that are out there, they're not really as dominant as what they should be as a number one, number two, number three ranked teams in the country. And everybody's had hiccups. Alabama, their hiccup came against Texas, a team that really isn't as good as what people thought they were. You got us with Missouri and Kent State, not really, but you got Ohio State not really playing up to their full potential at all times. So,
and Lamar, when you think about it and you look at all those teams, the whole top five is in a rare position to where each team lost significant players from their team. Like I don't know if this happens that often, but each, hold up now. Do we got somebody coming on? I think I know this guy.
See, I tell you, every time you get into another topic, boom, it hits.
It's always me, huh?
It's always
this guy that we got coming on right now. I think I know him. I think we from the same family tree. It's my big cousin, the great, the wonderful. I look up to this guy. Should be in the Hall of Fame. I believe he'll get there one day. The Auburn Legend, War Eagle, War Tiger, as I called him, the great Takeo Spikes, man. What's happening, cuzzo?
That's what that War Eagle gonna sound like when we come in the damn stadium this weekend, brother.
Oh man, you came off the top rope with it right now. Well, slow down. Slow down, buddy. Hold your horses.
Hey, shit, you ain't got. Hey, I'm keeping them in the stable, boy. Yeah, I came on this podcast hoping that you guys would keep the horses in the stable because listen, we need it down on the plains, brother.
We can't let it go though. We trying to repeat, baby.
Man,
we're trying to repeat. We can't. We gotta let the horses go. The last 2 weeks we haven't quite. We've been a little shaky, to start these games. So we need to get it together.
Yeah, man. But a lot of people expecting y'all to kind of rev it up against us, man. What's the line on this game? Somebody told me it was like 30.
29. Yes, 29. That's a lot. It's like the most ever in the series by like 12
That's
points.
A lot of points.
It's too many. It is a lot.
I don't think I could take last year's team for that line.
We wouldn't cover last year. It was 34-10 last year.
This Deep South is good. What they call good old-fashioned hate. Deep South oldest rivalry. Deep South's oldest rivalry. 29 points don't seem like it's going to happen. I hope it does.
And I hope it doesn't, because then I got to go to work. I got to be humiliated while watching it at work.
In studio. With Ben.
With that old Georgia dog. But nah, man, I think about, just the times and like, man, we had some good battles going back when I was in school. You were there, even years after that. But it wasn't up until last year, when the pandemic really slowed us down. And I realized, like, last year, it was you guys, I was, like, shocked to find out y'all had won the last 6 home games, and that the damn average was like 20 points a game. You know what I mean? So, but when you just look at the last 5 meetings, 5 of y'all 5-0, obviously, but the points per game, UGA 27, us 9. Rush yards per game, 217 for the Dogs, 77 for us. Takeaways, 5 for you guys, only 1 for us. And so, when you look at that average over a 5-year period, like it's more than astounding, but it's sad, bro. Like, I'm trying to figure out, damn, can you really call it a rivalry now? As much as we really look forward to that game, man.
We do have some Auburn listeners. We got Auburn listeners.
It's
still a rivalry.
It never loses its luster, though. No matter what, we've probably won the majority of the last 10, 12 or whatever, and it's still a rivalry. It's still a rivalry. No matter how you cut it, it's still a rivalry. So what? And here's the crazy thing about it. Auburn's not. They don't have a loss of players. So what do you think the deal is? Like, they're still getting draft picks after draft picks. You know what I mean? They're still putting out D linemen every year. They still have players, still recruiting well. What do you think the problem has been over the years, even spanning, several head coaches? What do you think the issue is?
I think it's the lack of recruiting the right talent. And yeah, you're right. We do have defensive linemen coming in. I truly believe that's the strength of this team, the defensive line. And, when you look at it overall, where Auburn really lacks is on the offensive line. If you don't have a line that can protect the quarterback, and then if your quarterback starting at the beginning of the season with TJ Finley, he's an average quarterback. And so if you got a bad offensive line blocking for an average quarterback, I mean, shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a long day, and I think that's what happens. Like defensively, like looking at what we are, the totality defensively of Auburn, they're a pretty good defense. They right at the middle of the pack. Pretty good on third down conversions too. I think they sit at one of the top teams in the SEC in the top tier. I wouldn't say a top team, but top tier. But bottom line is this. The reason why Auburn isn't winning games, bro, is because they are -9 in the turnover margin. And you have a bad offensive line. You're only averaging 17 points a game. The last 2 games, you scored 17 points and didn't even score the last in the half, the second half, in the last 2 games. So
wow.
Imagine how much stress that's putting on them. The running game has been lethargic at best. Tank Bigsby, in my opinion, I think he's a top 3 running back in the nation. But nobody will ever see it just because he's not getting the opportunities as far as carries. Then he's not getting opportunities to get through the first line of defense, meaning the defensive line. He's always getting hit. So, that's the tough part. Now, the bright spot, I will say, going back to last week, Auburn should have beat LSU, like hands down. They scored 17 points and allowed LSU to come back and score 20-something plus points uncontested after that. If Auburn is going to win, I said last week, they need more out of Robbie Ashford, the young quarterback, the transfer that came from Oregon. And he balled out last week, bro. So for me, I think it's important to continue that same format. You got to move him out of the pocket because he's very athletic. He can find receivers down the field and be able to create plays that I think of going back to when Georgia played Missouri last week. And look at some of the plays, the running back Pete for Missouri broke out on the big loan. That's the same play that Auburn runs. So guess what Auburn better be doing? Picking up some of the same plays. Jalen Carl is not going to play this week. He's been hampered with that ankle. So, yeah, man, it's going to be a dogfight, to say at the least.
So with Ashford, I mean, yeah, like last week, 337 yards passing, still only 50% completion. But I mean, that was like Missouri, he passed for 127 yards. What do you feel like was the thing that kind of got him clicking and started creating those big plays and through the air for them against LSU?
You know what? It was – I thought they was very innovative, rolling him out of the pocket. And the thing that, I was surprised – I wasn't surprised to see it because it shows up in the tape when you look at it. Robbie Ashford leads all SEC quarterbacks in yards per attempt on throws outside the pocket, with 10.6 yards per attempt. That's a minimum of all of the guys that's combined in there. So it goes to show you when you move him out of the pocket and allow him to use his athletic ability, he puts pressure and stress on the defense. The other thing that I thought he did very well, he didn't have, I wouldn't say great touch in the intermediate range from that 6 to 10 yards. But when you look at him passing the ball last week against LSU, 10 plus, his touch was beautiful. I want to say he ended up like 9 for 13 going past 10 yards. So he's able to have the touch on the ball, throwing the ball deep. And the thing when he scrambled last week, I was proud to see that he kept his eyes downfield. And that's how he burnt LSU several times. He kept his eyes downfield. He was able to see the rush and he saw when a receiver was open. And I think that's all part of his game that if you in practice as a defense, you can't prepare for that. The only way that you can prepare for it is you just got to see it. And so, for him, now he has 2 solid games to where he got a good amount of tape. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I'm going to follow up with that because you said that the coaching staff put him in a position to make those plays. Do you trust this coaching staff to do it for a third week in a row, or do they kind of revert back to their old standard of when TJ Finley was back there?
Well, I just think, in my opinion, playing Robbie gives Auburn the best chance to win this game because of what he did from the previous week. But you have to look at the big picture, and the big picture is they haven't been able to protect the quarterback. They haven't been able to win the turnover margin. They are -9 in the turnover margin. That's last in the SEC. So imagine this. We know how hard it is to go out and beat Georgia. Now imagine playing Georgia and trying to play the worst part of you as a team that turns the football over. So it's you playing against 2 people. Because, I know you've been playing for a long time, and I played for a long time too. I ain't never seen a team beat 2 people on the same playing field. It just ain't possible. So, you got to take out the self-inflicted wounds.
And that's the same thing for Georgia.
Yep, I was just going to say that. Just going to say that. What's funny? Yeah, because you made a lot of noise with Dog Nation. I ain't going to lie about it. When you picked South Carolina, of all teams, to upset the Dogs. So the credibility on this show, Takeo is it's a little bit shaky. But I'm going to ask you this.
Man, stop it.
I'm just going to say, I had to throw it out there, and I got another bone to pick with you, but I'm going to say it a little bit later. But anyway, with that being said, how do you feel about Georgia right now? Because you've been following them all year. You're on the network. That's your job to follow all these teams. What have you seen in Georgia where you say, you know what, I don't know if Auburn can get this thing done, or if Auburn really truly does have a shot?
So let me answer the last question. So the last question is, what have I seen out of this UGA team? Let's take the last 2 games for an example. Everybody is worried. Everybody is thinking, oh, my God, they're not coming out. They're not beating people like they did Oregon. They're not coming out beating teams like they did South Carolina. Well, I do want to put this into the equation. Man, they had, 5 first-round picks off of the defensive side? And so, most times, listen, I get it. I'm from Georgia. And I know how much people put Georgia in a high regard, regardless of whatever they may lose. They still want to see the same dominance as they saw in the previous years. I get it. But I want to just say this. You look at the last 2 games, they went out and did what they were supposed to do. Now, it's hard. It wasn't pretty. But when Kirby came off the game and said, you know what, I'm proud of them because even though they didn't come out and do or win the way that I wanted them to win, it's still hard playing your best ball when everybody is going to give you your best. And essentially, it's a young team, just meaning young and like actual starts, young and actual guys playing, not necessarily just playing freshmen. So this is a damn good football team. And who they are or what we saw the first game of the year, like that's who they are. And they still are that team. And so when I see Auburn coming in there this week, it's gonna be a tough game just because it's a rivalry game. But then on the flip side, you know, I see in order for Auburn to be able to compete, they can't just turn the football over. You got to give yourself a chance because Georgia's too good, and they're going to lock in. Like, I don't know if Georgia wasn't locked in playing against Missouri, but I tell you what, that was the best smelling sauce they had last week to wake their ass up for this week. Because if they come out there playing against Auburn, then, you know, maybe you might see an upset. I don't think so. And going back to the Carolina game, you talking about the credibility. Let's talk about that. First of all, that comment was made after Spencer Rattler came to South Carolina in the summertime, media week. Now, historically, Georgia struggles with Carolina. We all thought that Spencer Rattler was going to come in and be able to be the Spencer Rattler of, what was that, 2020?
Yeah.
And he's not that guy. He only has 4 pass touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So, you know, quite the disappointment. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
I think you forgot that he has teammates.
and the fact, like, they got players. You got Jaheim Bell, Christian Beal-Smith, Cam Smith on the defensive side. But they haven't been able to put it together, man. It's just, anyway, we ain't giving Carolina no time right now. This is about Auburn and Georgia. The longest rivalry in the South.
Yes, sir.
I'll tell you what.
I think the last, it seemed like about like the last 5 years you've been running from bets from me. like you used to be like, well, we got this week, cuzzo. But now I don't get none. Can we need to do this live and in person? Because I bet no matter what Georgia got. I was betting when Hudson Mason was the quarterback, when Joe Tarashinsky was the quarterback. I ride or die with the dogs. So, you know, we ain't got to say what it's going to be, but, you know, just let me know that we got a bet.
We got a bet. We don't figure it out before the game.
I don't care if it's $1. We got a bet.
Well, we'll
talk about it later.
What is one of your favorite moments of this rivalry? Because, I mean, it is a fun week. I mean, obviously we talked about the ups and downs of both teams and what could possibly happen. But truly, with this, what does this rivalry mean to both of you gentlemen that have actually played in this game and one of your most favorite games that you played in this rivalry itself?
I'm going to start off because I'm going to be quick. I think what's crazy is I think both of us played in the number 1 and number 2 game ever in this rivalry. You know what I mean? I'm biased, so I'm going to say our 2002 game. I know you probably say, 96? Then what was that, the 5 overtime game?
4.
Yeah, 96. Yep.
Yeah, you know, so I think that's the second best game of the rivalry. And I'll let you talk.
Yeah, it was. Damn, was it 96 or not?
Robert, yeah, and what's crazy is your high school teammate went crazy.
Yeah, it was 96.
Robert,
and
your high school teammate went crazy on you.
He did. He was the plum fool out there. And that was the time to where that's the reason why they changed the overtime rules, because we went in so many overtimes. And but man, I'm gonna tell you what makes the rivalry so good is you have a lot of guys who are on Auburn's team that are from Georgia. And for us, I remember being at Auburn, and I knew the significance of the Iron Bowl, but for me, my Iron Bowl, especially like when I first got there, it was against Georgia because I knew everybody was going to be watching. I grew up maybe an hour and some change away from Athens. And so people to this day still remind me, man, you should have went to Georgia. I was like, it still worked out for me. But it's the high school ties that you got with the guys who you play against. It's the bragging rights that you have, not just us as players, but just as fans. You got a bunch of people who, if you do take a poll, I guarantee you have a bunch of Auburn and Georgia grads married to each other. Like, that's just...
I got an aunt and uncle that are just like that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So like, that's what makes it so good. And it's one of the few games I truly believe in college football to where when you step on that field, you can feel the historic heights of the game. Like, you feel like the significant meaning of what it means to walk inside of that stadium in between the hedges. Like, man, that's like, I miss it just even talking about it. Like, it's dope. Like, it's awesome to be able to come in Jordan-Hare Stadium and you see the damn eagle flying around and land in the middle of the field.
Because, I was just about to say that. The Plains at a night game down there, it screams prime time. I've always said that. It just feels like ESPN. It just, because it's how the lights, I don't know if it's how the lights are. Then you look up there in that corner, you see that eagle, and you see him flying down and swooping down, man. It's a crazy experience, man. Crazy experience. It feels like prime time when you're in that stadium.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, you really can't, like, that's what it feels like. You know what I mean? And so if you ball in this game, like, you get national cred respect because everybody's watching. Everybody's watching.
Everybody knows Michael Johnson caught that ball in 2002 in the back of the end zone. And they hadn't heard from Michael Johnson since. That's my boy Hollywood, you my dog. They ain't heard from Michael Johnson, but he is known for life for that play. You know, I still remember I was at the game. Matter of fact, I met you and Fred Beasley, all them down there in the parking lot tail game before the game. That game where Junior Rose Green knocked out Reggie Brown. Like, when everybody remember that hit, you know what I'm saying, when he smacked. You know what I mean? Like plays from that game are like ingrained in college football history.
Yeah. Like, this is where legends are made. This is the perfect game for it.
All right, so speaking of the significance of this game, obviously, you know, Coach Harsin has had everything, all the conversation that's been going on around him, and, you know, it seems like there's segments of the fan base that might be ready to move on. You know, Kyle, what are your feelings just on the coaching situation and the staff, and then also on the – like, is there anything he can do to save his job at this point? Like, does a win Saturday save his job?
A win guarantees him another week.
Right. You know? I mean, like, past the season, can he get? I mean, is there any chance he's coaching Auburn in 2023?
I mean, we just gotta wait and see. You know, and if he wins, he stays. You know, I think that's the big thing, but. This is the thing that I don't want to get lost in translation. Brian Harsin is a damn good football coach. Mm-hmm. I know that just because I watched him over years, way long before I even knew he was coming to the Plains. The problem is a lot of it is due to what he inherited as well. And when you inherit guys who are not peak performers or guys who can't play at a high level, you know, that's one problem. Then you take into account the smear campaign that happened about, you know, they saying boosters trying to get him fired, everything that he went through in the offseason. That killed another recruiting class. Like, who wants to come to that? And so now when you look at this Auburn football team, like, they got potential to be good, but they don't have the quality depth. They'll match up with anybody. Now, watch what I tell you. Watch how well that defensive front plays this week. Defensively, they got a good defense, but nobody would never know because the offense is 3 times worse, especially on the offensive line. So if you ain't doing – it ain't no different than, you know, I think about Eric Thomas. Eric Thomas, the motivational speaker. Eric Thomas goes out, and I heard him say one time, I'm going out, and I'm just pouring. I'm pouring into so many people. But it's important that I take time to myself to replenish. Well, you know what? Harsin has been pouring and pouring into a lot of people, but he's never been able to replenish, or the pot never was replenished before he even arrived. And so once you get past the first line of defenders or the first team of guys that are playing, that's where we're suffering. And that bothers me because Auburn is a big-time institution. And for me, that's no excuse to that. And I'm not blaming Harsin for that. It's a culmination of years been put together of us not being able to go out and recruit the top-tier guys. Then when you go and get the guys, you're not developing the guys in a manner to where I think about what Kirby did with you guys last year. Did you even realize Trayvon Walker was the #1 pick in the draft, but he wasn't even all SEC before the year? That's development, guys. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's what we're missing on the Plains.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. I don't even know what to say after that. All I'm going to say, I'm going to tell you my story, though, because I told you I was coming back to you, okay? I told you, Takeo, I was coming back to you. Now, you my dog. Always have been my dog, and I'm going to accept you as a dog because you're from Georgia. But you got drafted by Cincinnati. Now, I'm a Pittsburgh kid. Yeah. So you get drafted, I got to deal with you at Auburn, then I got to deal with you with the Cincinnati Bengals. And then I'm going to tell you this last story. I'm at home. I'm out. I'm at the club. I meet this girl, fine as frog hair. I said, where are you from? She said, I'm from Alabama. I said, oh, okay, where'd you go to school? She said, I went to Auburn. I said, oh, okay. And she says, yeah, you might know one of my friends. I said, who's your friend? She said, Takeo Spikes. And I said, really? And I kind of got a little frustrated because, again, you were playing for Cincinnati then. Name was Chris. So I've had this thing for you for a long time. And then when George said it's my cousin, I said, I got to let it go now. I got to let the cat come in, do what he does, because I've always appreciated your talent, and you that dude. So, but that's my story, man, because it was there. It's been sitting there. It's like just eating at me for years.
What was her name?
Chris.
He said your neck was too big for him to kick the game.
Look, see, I gifted you that, and you damn missed the layup. I'm all the way in the and you damn missed. You got one job, and you let off the
hook. No, man, we laughed, man. Me and her laughed about it, man. She said, you was one of the coolest guys ever on campus, and y'all was good friends. I don't know, you probably still might talk to her, as a friend or whatever, but she always said you was a good man. So I've always been a big time supporter. I know you were up for the Hall of Fame last year, and I still think you're a Hall of Famer. I can't wait till you get in, brother. No doubt about it.
Yeah, man. We'll jump back on, man. Do a whole show about this thing in due time, man.
Got another question. How was it, since we're talking about accolades and stuff, I'm an O-line guy, so I'm always pro O-line, O-line is the best position in football. How was it being on hand to see our partner, Big Willie, get put in the Ring of Honor in Cincinnati, man? That's a big, huge thing, man. I was glad to see that, man, because Willie, a good dude, played top-notch football for a lot of years, man.
Man, it was awesome. I mean, you take into account the Cincinnati Bengals just started their Ring of Honor last year. So that was the first time ever. Like, they're the last team to ever have a Ring of Honor. So to have Willie Anderson go in it and looking at the amount of time that he spent there and not winning games, like, it's tremendous. And I think now, finally, we should see him going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Because like you said, man, Willie was second to nobody. And you know that just from playing the position, offensive tackle. His ability to shut down Reggie White, Michael Strahan, having guys like Warren Sapp, Coach Cower, to give them the nod, like, look, what was taking so long? Willie Anderson deserves to be in there, even though he played on bad teams. So, like, it was good for him to be recognized, man, because I'm going to tell you, going back, when I was in Cincinnati, man, it felt like you were doing a prison sentence sometimes, man. I mean, at times, it was tough. Like, the culture was so bad. And every week we fought hard during the summertime to change the perspective or the perception of how we were going to be viewed. And it was hard, but that's the reason why I'm so proud of him, because now light is finally being shined on him, showing how good of a player he was despite all of the games that didn't turn into wins.
And hopefully a lot of you other guys, man, like yourself, Corey Dillon, Ocho, TJ, Levi played good ball there. Like the Cincinnati Bengals had a lot of good players, man. It just didn't translate to wins. So hopefully, everybody gets to, the people that don't know football, that will get to see a lot of the guys, because Cincinnati is part of the legacy of the NFL. And so, the general public gets to see, okay, this guy was pretty good and he played for the Bengals.
That's it, man. So I'm going to keep beating my chest whenever I get a chance.
You'll be in there and I'll be out there. Just let me know.
You better know it. You ain't got no choice.
These flights getting crazy. Just let me know early.
Hey, but before we let you get up off of this phone and kind of get back to what you do, what are some of the other things? Let the people know exactly what else you got going on. We know you're on the SEC Network and ESPN, but let everybody kind of know where they could follow you, tap in. I know you got some other projects that you're doing.
Yeah, so appreciate that. First, you could tap in. You could check me out every Friday, Saturday on the SEC Network. Friday, 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. The show is SEC Now. We're going to give you the full preview of what's to come for the next day, which is Saturday, when Auburn is going to hopefully, fingers crossed and toes crossed, pull off the upset against the Dogs. All right?
You better cross your eyes.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with being wishful and hopeful. And Saturday, man, we just recap everything, and we do a SEC rap show at the end of the night. Usually comes on like 10:30, 11 o'clock p.m., and we recap the entire SEC. And then once you tune into that, and I know you're going to want more of me, and that's okay because I'm here for it, tune in to the Behind the Mask podcast, okay? Mm-hmm. Myself, Tom Reyes. And it's one of those podcasts, you got a visual aid to it, and you can find it everywhere, all streaming platforms, including YouTube. And our niche, I would probably say we do a great job of bringing legends, people with status on, and we get them sharing untold, unfiltered stories as if you and them were just sitting in the locker room chopping it up.
Nice.
We drop it once a week, every Wednesday. So we just dropped the episode today. Check it out.
Facts. Well,
And
I'm
you
gonna go
can
and I'm
find
gonna
me on
listen to it.
Takeo Spikes 51. All of that.
Damn. There you go. All right,
know what?
before you go, last question for you. Does Auburn on Saturday score its first second-half touchdown in Sanford Stadium since 2007? It's been 15 years since they've scored a second-half touchdown in Athens.
You lying.
Bullshit.
No way.
I'm not believing that.
That's a real stat.
That's a real stat. 100%.
You looking at everything through them silver britches and red jersey eyes.
I just asked if they were going to do it on Saturday.
But damn it, I ain't turning down no bet on my board. We book it.
All right, man. Look, he throwing a lot of shots. He done thrown some shots from South Carolina angle. Now he talking about they gonna score in the second half. Now, I don't know what to tell you.
He's been a good sport. Come on.
Yeah, he's a good man. You know, we got to support him always. But, you know, we appreciate you coming on here on the 100 Sanford podcast, blessing the podcast with your presence. And we really call this Behind Enemy Lines because now we're talking to some enemy minds, and you are that enemy mind for the weekend. So we appreciate you coming on, Takeo, and sharing your stories with us.
Oh, good. When is it going to air?
It'll air tomorrow morning.
Put out tomorrow morning.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, Cuzzo.
Already, boy. Anytime.
Thanks for coming on, man.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, fellas. Mr. Foster, that was your Cuzzo that you cut it up with all the time, and hopefully one day I'll get a chance to meet him face to face, and we can really talk about this story, talk about this Chris situation.
Let's say there's more to be known on that.
There's more to be known, man. I mean, look, I love my wife, but that could have been the other one. But anyway, he had a lot to say about Auburn, fellas, and I think he's factual and truthful when it comes down to some of the things that these guys are able to do on Saturday and what they should do, and really plays into their favor. I mean, when you go back and look at the highlights last week of the game, actually Robbie Ashford, even going back to the Penn State game when he played in that game a little bit, in the LSU game, getting him outside.
Got ability.
He's got ability. When you get him outside the pocket and he rolls. But I think one of the other things that happens is that there's a lot of breakdown in the defense. When you talk about LSU, that's where the big plays came downfield, where the secondary broke down, didn't play their gaps, didn't play their man, and you get some of those big plays. And hopefully Georgia does not get lulled into something like that and enamored by the kid's speed and athletic ability outside the pocket, where they allow some things to break down, which is not very indicative of a Kirby Smart defense to allow that many big plays to happen. But anything can happen.
Well, I mean, I think the good news and maybe the bad news as well for Georgia is I'm sure everybody that watched the game last Saturday remembers the moment where Dumas Johnson was yelling at Kamari Lassiter on the bench, right. And that was not about the touchdown. It was about the play where Brady Cook rolled right to the sideline.
Two plays.
Yeah, everybody sucked up from the secondary. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you got three dudes from the back end running downhill at a quarterback that runs like a 4.9 40 and leaving wide receivers open. So, yes, you've seen Georgia bust it, but the good news about them busting it is that they've sat in the film room and talked about it and practiced it probably this week. So they should be ready for his – I mean, like, I hate to say this because I don't want to put this evil on young Robbie Ashford, but defending him is going to be very similar to defending Bo Nix.
That's all I was thinking. That's all I've thought about. Ever since I've seen Robbie Ashford play quarterback at Auburn, it's like it's Bo Nix, but a black version, quite honestly. Let's just be real with it. So, and you mentioned it earlier, Graham. I mean, he's only completing passes at a 53.1, 54.1 clip. So he's not really throwing the ball incomplete.
You want to hear something wild?
What's that?
All right. So if you look at his pass chart, right, on throws of 0 to 9 yards, he's 56.8% completion, 4.6 yards an attempt. On throws 10 to 19 yards, He's 38.5% completion, 2 interceptions. On deep throws, 20-plus yards, 9 of 14, 64.3%, 24.4 yards in attempt. He throws a really good deep ball, and that's about it, to be honest. You know, I mean, like, if you leave a guy open, he can hit him. Takeo is right. He made some nice throws where it didn't look like he was throwing his fastball every single time he dropped back on Saturday. But I think what you said, how you kind of started this segment of, you know, the defense sucking up, that's the whole game in my mind for Georgia's defense. Like, as long as they can stay assignments down in the back end, they will be fine, because he is not accurate enough to take 5, 7, 8-yard throws all the way down the field.
Yeah. Man, I'm telling you what's going to happen, man. That Sanford crowd is going to be nuts. I should be there, too. I'll hopefully I get a signal. I'll, you know, be broadcasting from the 100 Sanford page, so y'all tune in. It should be. This
is Auburn's first game too.
It should be. I'm telling you, man, it's gonna be a wild game, and I don't know if the youngster could. You know, it's gonna be tough. Put it like that. It's gonna be tough to come in there and play well. You know what I mean? So, you know, that could bode well for the Georgia. It's a nice situation for a bounce back. Put it like that. It couldn't be any better situation for a bounce back game.
And when you go back and you look at even last week when you were watching LSU versus Auburn, they were getting beat on the edges consistently. I mean, Robbie Ashford had to work miracles to get outside the pocket and get away from defenders, because, I mean, LSU was collapsing that offensive line like crazy. And one of the things that Georgia does well, they play sound defense. They don't let guys get around the edges. Beal, you got Nolan. They're playing tough on the outsides. You got what the heck is his name, man?
Mikael.
Yeah, Mikael. I mean, they're setting the edges. Yeah, they're setting the edges well. And I think these guys can get off on Auburn. I mean, I've been calling it since the beginning of the season that we're going to see one of these 4 or 5 sack games. I think this is the game that you really see it. You got a young quarterback that's not – look, he scrambles. I get it. But, I mean, when you play –
it's just he's athletic. He's not –
yeah, he's athletic. But when you play Bo Nix, you usually drag Bo Nix down 2 or 3 times, right? But now you got a kid who's a little bit younger in the pocket. First time to Athens. Like George said, the crowd's going to be going nuts. You don't have the skill position players that can really, truly hurt you unless you allow them to hurt you. Again, going back to just playing sound defense on that back end. I think it's one of those games where you can see the defensive line really get off, and some of these young guys have been waiting for an opportunity. Yeah.
Like Graham said, it's one of the assiest offensive lines in the nation.
It is. There's a whole lot of ass on that offensive line.
They're very assy. So, you know, like, and the other one was Missouri. And if you look at Missouri, they looked assy in some situations last week. You know what I mean? There were some plays. Yeah, there were some plays where, you know, they got whooped up some. So I expect the same thing to happen this week. And then you got the home crowd causing havoc too. So it's gonna be a tough road to hoe for that offense, the Auburn offense.
Well, I mean, let's get right. Go ahead, Graham. You got.
Well, no, I mean, I think the only thing I'll say about Ashford Nix kind of comparison, like every time Bo Nix and Georgia faced each other when he was at Auburn, you know, Kirby, even when Adam Anderson was a freshman wearing number 35, he would put Adam Anderson on the field in 3rd and long and basically put him in there like a 6th defensive back to spy Bo Nix. And I'm interested to see who they do that with on Saturday. I agree with you, Nolan and Robert Beal, good athletes, but not maybe the most like twitchy guys in open.
Oh no, they're not Derek Hall coming off that edge. No.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it'll be interesting. Like Darius Smith, the kid that, you know, is 6'5" and runs like a crazy 40, you know, track star, like could be a good moment for him to to get a little run and, just basically come in on third downs. And it's pretty simple. If they say, hey, if that guy breaks contain, you go tackle him, right? Like, don't let there be a run lane for him to scramble on us. But, yeah, that's kind of my only thought is just I'm interested to see how they play this with Ashford on third downs.
Yeah, I agree. And really, when you look at it, is Auburn really Oregon? I mean, when you look at their skills,
they're not. I mean, Oregon's a good football team, and if they hadn't had those 2 picks,
they are now.
They moved the ball on Georgia. They just turned the ball over, and that game got sideways on them quick. But no, I mean, Oregon has dudes on the outside. Like, they have athletes at receiver. Their offensive line was probably the best one Georgia's going to face all year, in my opinion. So, this is not that.
Well, let's go a little bit deeper right now. Then, 3:30 start in Athens. What do you guys have this game and the outcome of this game looking like? I'll start with Trey. He's been quiet all night. What you got, Trey?
On the outcome, hopefully we don't start flat again. But score, I got. I'm probably gonna go with. I'll say 35-10. Well, not 35. 35-9. I'll go 35-9.
Hey, no BS. That was my exact call. Not 9, but 10. 35-10 was what I was thinking.
I ain't gonna give him a touchdown. I'll give him 3 field goals.
What do you got, Graham?
I'm going 41-9. I had 9 in my head before Trey said it, ironically enough.
Okay. I'm going 38-17. This defense, this defense to me is just made a point to give up points. I mean, I don't know if they've taken the same pride that last year's team took, which was nobody's going to score on us, and I haven't seen that yet. And until I see it, I'm still going to allow a touchdown here or there, a blown play here or there, and that's okay. It's a learning situation, right? Especially if your offense is able to put up points. But I just think that this offense is going to come in dialed up by Monk, and I think we're probably going to see one of the better game played, game called games since Oregon. I don't know. I just think that we learned a lot last week in that Missouri game, which, again, going back to last week, I thought that would be a telling situation in terms of how they responded coming from Kent State, going to Missouri on the road with a raucous crowd. And one thing that I did like, Graham, I'm going to go back to something that you mentioned. It was the Pop situation with Lassiter. We saw that with Dean last year, where he would go to guys, hold people accountable. Now Pop is that guy holding people accountable. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that they're able to learn from that. They're able to follow his lead and say, you know what, learn from that situation. So going forward, going in against an Auburn, you don't let guys get behind you on defense and all that sort of thing. So I'm looking forward to a lot in this game. What do you guys say?
Right. So I agree with your logic. You want to know what really kind of shifted me into blowout mode for this game? Auburn center Brandon Council had his media availability today.
Yeah.
So here's some of the quotes from his media availability. First, he says, if you start off fast, run the ball on them, and keep them out of their third down packages, really, we could demolish them. I believe personally up front. And then he goes into, right now they don't have that much depth due to injuries in the interior D-line. The guys that do come out, I don't think they trust them. If we keep them out of third down where they can't bring packages and have to keep their main guys on the field, we're just going to run the ball on them all day because they're going to get tired. So, and then he says at the end, we have a chance to go out there and do something that hasn't been done in a long time. That's beat Georgia at Georgia. That would be a big thing. Our goal is to go in there like a SWAT team, in and out and quiet the noise and beat their behinds and get out. This dude brought down the wrath of everybody. It's going to be, he called down the thunder. He's about to get it. I think Georgia's defense is going to play pissed, and we haven't seen them really play pissed all year. And I think that's what they need to do is play pissed. But
yeah,
I know for a fact that this quote has already circulated amongst the Georgia locker room. So if the Missouri game and the headlines after that weren't enough motivation, I think that Auburn did them a little bit of a favor by spicing it up.
Yeah, I mean, you get to the point, sometimes you just got to shut up. You know what I mean? Like, just go and play. And
it's good to be confident.
Why wake it, yeah, I mean, that's just crazy to me. Crazy talk. That's coming. He must be a crazy man. He's got issues. He's got concerns. He's got things that he needs to work on. So I'll just say that. But no, I don't think Auburn does anything to really necessarily hurt Georgia. Again, I just think it's a consistent learning process throughout this year. And guess what, folks? I'll take that. I'll take learning all the way to the national championship game, and I don't care how you get there, just get there. But I'll go back.
Olita Adams.
What's that, George?
The youngsters, Graham and Trey, ain't gonna know nothing about that. Olita Adams. I don't care how you get here, just get here. Old school song.
Oh, I actually do. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, man, that's he went into the crate. And we know his circles of music that he gets to, so he went into the crate on that one, man. But
yes, sir.
But fellas, anything else we want to talk about before we get out of here tonight, man?
No. Sir.
Yeah, because I don't think we have anything in regards to recruiting right now. I know there's going to be a lot of recruits on campus. It's a good recruiting weekend, but we might have some people that are itching to pull the trigger. Can't release some of those names right now, but maybe we'll have our boys from Field Street Forum come on and talk about that maybe next week and talk about some recruiting. But with that being said, as always, go Dogs. See you at 100 Sanford.
See you at 100 Sanford.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to the 100 Sanford podcast. Tune in weekly to hear fresh content from the 100 Sanford podcast every Thursday, but also with some pop-up shows every now and then as news breaks. You can also follow the content on our website, www.100sanfordpodcast.com, and email us at dogs@100sanfordpodcast.com. Lastly, reach out to us on social media streams. For Twitter, it's at 100 Sanford, but on IG, TikTok, Facebook, and other accounts, it's 100 Sanford Podcast. All right, folks, that's it. And as usual, see you at 100 Sanford.